All right. Welcome to myth busting. Only got a few questions this time. See how long it takes to get through them. First question tonight. Was it Samantha? I think had. I don't want to say who. It's better not to say who. Some myths around Shabbos. Who could? Are men allowed to light candles? Who does the obligation fall on? Can you get? When can you get non-Jews to do things on Shabbos for you? When can you not? Etc. Etc. Okay, so is the obligation of lighting candles only on women? No, absolutely not. The obligation is on the home. You have to the home has to be lit. Wherever you're going to eat the meal, actually, that is where you have to light candles. What if you're in yeshiva and there's only boys there? Who lights candles? Well, one year it was me. I volunteered to be the candle lighter guy. I wasn't every Shabbos, but we do have to light candles. And I would say the bracha, and I would do like this and everything. I wasn't the only one who did it. What if you don't have candles? Sometimes that would happen. You know, which yeshiva bacher boy would remember to buy candles at the store, or if the yeshiva just didn't provide it. So what you could do is, what's the point of candles? Candles is for shalom bayis. It says that if two people are eating in the dark, if you're walking around in darkness, you're bound to quarrel, yeah, because you can be bumping into each other, you can be breaking stuff. I break stuff even with the light on. When I make kiddush, my wife puts all the china away from me, and I should really just eat with a bib and paper plates. I just knock things over all the time. But imagine if it was in darkness, how much more crazy would it be? If you don't have candles, since the whole point of candles is to bring light, what you could do is turn off your light, and I'm saying I'm going to turn this light on for Shabbos, and that's it. Fulfill the obligation of lighting for Shabbos. You will not make a bracha, a blessing on it. Yeah, that's all you really need to do. That's what would happen sometimes. In fact, if you would eat,
do you have to declare it like that?
Yeah, yes, you do. It's for Shabbos, for the sake of Shabbos. If you didn't, it's okay. Just like a blessing. Are you supposed to say a blessing beforehand? Yes. What if you did the act without saying the blessing? You don't go back and say the blessing, except for drinking.
So if you do candles and you're leaving on certain lights, would you only say the bracha obviously on the candles, and then you wouldn't say this is for Shabbos whenever you previously before turned on the light?
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's exactly what it's like in my house right before Shabbos. Chaos. And we're turning on lights, turning off lights, taping up the refrigerator, make sure the light stays off, taking out bulbs. There's a lot going on. 2 Shabbos ago, during the pouring rain, I forgot to do the light in the refrigerator, and we had to go across the street. Our blessed neighbor, Rahim from Malaysia, came and helped us. And which will segue into what can you do? What can you tell a non-Jew to do for you on Shabbos? It's very complicated. It's way beyond the scope of this myth busting, but essentially some key guidelines. One is you're not allowed to tell a non-Jew to do something that you are not allowed to do yourself. You can't tell them to do it for yourself. Okay, let me explain it like this. Judaism Torah has its own definition of benefit. What does benefit mean? Benefit means, for example, of the light. Do you benefit? When you only benefit from the light if you turn on the light. If you turn off a light, you're not benefiting from the light. Yeah, so let's say it's nighttime, it's time to go to sleep, and oh no, I need someone to turn off the light. You could tell a non-Jew, you can hint to a non-Jew to turn off the light for you. But aren't you benefiting from the light being off if you sleep better from the light being off? That may be true, but you're not benefiting from the substance itself. You're benefiting from the lack of the substance, the lack of that entity. If it's nighttime and you want someone to turn on the light, then it's way more complicated. If you want the light on, then you're not allowed to just go tell a non-Jew to turn on the light for you. unless it's for his own benefit as well. Now, so let's go to the case of the refrigerator. They're turning off the light on the refrigerator in and of itself is not going to be an issue. But in order for him to turn off the light, what did he have to do? He couldn't just hit a switch. He actually had to cut a piece of tape, rip a piece of tape, which you're not allowed to do on Shabbos. He had to rip a piece of tape and then put it over, like a little knob that sticks out. And if you push it in, then the light will turn off. So he had to cut it and then place it over that knob. So that's a problem, right? You can't do that unless he benefits unless he's benefiting from the act in some way. Now, what did we do? We gave him food. We told him, come over and eat with us, and you can help us with something as well at the same time. So he came over and he had some dessert from the fridge, and then he turned it off. It's like again, there's like a lot there, but because it was the only way to get open to the fridge and for him to benefit and eat from the food, therefore he was able.
So you're allowed to ask them directly in that way? It doesn't have to be a complicated, like, hinting?
Is it a complicated hinting? Okay, I think it's beyond, you know what? I'm actually learning these laws right now with the rabbis I'm reviewing these laws. Was I really supposed to have hinted it to him? I don't think so. I don't think I needed to, but you know what? Let's go back. I don't know. I don't want to say whether I did it right or wrong.
Yeah.
Perhaps I didn't. I don't know.
I don't know. My brother is like a full chassid. Like, he follows all the laws. And whenever my father's a non-Jew, and he, like, sometimes whenever he was here on Shabbos, he would be like, "Oh, Dad, like, there's a funny thing with my light or with the fan or something," and he's like, "Oh," and so he'll turn it off, and that's like hinting, because it's not like he's directly asking him to please turn it off. So I always wonder, like, does he need to be doing that, or is he just being extra careful by hinting and like taking a precaution? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, is it definitely
because there's a lot of things that he does that it's just in precaution of, Yeah. So
I don't know, and I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. When it comes to halacha, I don't want to say the wrong thing. I need to look it up. Exactly when do you hint, when do you not hint. It's extremely complicated. It's most of the time you can't do it. Most of the time you can't do it, especially if the person's not benefiting from it in any way, or he's not going to do it for himself, or he doesn't benefit from it. Like, you may be able to tell him, can you turn off the light for me? Okay, eventually he'll be able to benefit from that light, because if he's also going to take a snooze in that room, then that person will be benefiting from it. But I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. Just some other things, maybe some other myths about Shabbos. In a case of an emergency, not only does Shabbos say break Shabbos, it doesn't say break Shabbos. And actually, Shabbos obligates you to pick up the phone and call an ambulance. That's part of the obligation of Shabbos. It's part of Shabbos Tainug, Shvisa Shabbos, the pleasure of Shabbos.
But is that only for health concerns and stuff? It's not like business related?
That's correct. Yeah. Anything to do with your health. Now, anything to do with life and death, or something that can lead to life and death. When it comes to medicine on Shabbos, again, don't do this if you're not ready for it. But medicine is problematic. Taking medicine on Shabbos is problematic. You can't just pop an Advil and just because you have a minor headache. If you have a major headache that is really holding you back from enjoying Shabbos, really subjectively, then you could take an Advil, an ibuprofen, or check with your local Orthodox rabbi. I don't think any of you live here in Michigan. But it's not so simple just to take medicine on Shabbos. But certainly life and death, Shabbos obligates you to, if a woman goes in labor, there's a whole thing. We're expecting, and what happens if you go on Shabbos? You call a Lyft or an Uber. It's like the whole situation. Your bag has to be packed beforehand. You ask the guy to take your bag if it's possible. It's a little complicated if the guy shows up and he's Jewish. That would be that's a bit problematic. But if you don't have Uber, then you get in your own car, and then you bring your car to the hospital, and you don't turn it off. Get someone else to turn it off for you. Whatever. It's like the whole thing. It's a whole funny thing. Some other myths. Men bake challah, no problem. It's a mitzvah that really is. It's connected to women. Shabbos candles is connected to women because Shabbos candles are connected to Sarah, Imenu, Sarah, our mother, and Rachel and Rivka. So it's more connected to the woman. Same with challah, as it's also connected with Sarah, Rivka, Rachel. But men should do it. By the way, matzah on Shabbos, totally cool. Very often, if something's wrong with our matzah, our challah, just get a box of matzah from Kroger or wherever your local doesn't have to be kosher for Pesach. It has a good hechsher. Should have a good hashgacha on it. Matzah on Shabbos for your instead of challah, totally can do it. I think the Rebbe did that. From what I understand, the Rebbe would do that. I never saw. I don't know, but that's what I heard. What are some other myths? What if you don't have wine for Kiddush? Make it on alcohol. But you don't say Bori Priyagafen. You say Shahakol Niya Bivaro if you're having whiskey or something. What are some other interesting little factoids about Shabbos? You can carry on Shabbos if you're within an Erev. There's different levels of an Erev. You guys know what an Erev is?
Yeah. On the blessing of the wine, quick question. Would it be important to try and it's like preference to do it over wine, or does it not really matter? Like if you wanted to regularly do it over something else, or should you err for wine?
Should always try it for wine. There are certain times of the year though, Chassidim have a custom to do it with like whiskey or something like that. But you should, wine always, and Avdallah as well should be done on wine. If you can't drink wine, grape juice is good. Now, the question is grape juice better than whiskey? Most likely it is. It's better to use whiskey. It's better to use grape juice than whiskey.
Wait, when do we get to do it with whiskey?
Well, you come to my Chabad house, we do it all the time. But Simchas Torah, especially Simchas Torah, that's Shmini Atzeret Simchas Torah. That's a pretty good time. It depends on where you are. People do it all the time. If you don't make Kiddush on whiskey, then plenty of l'chaims to follow, especially our Chabad house, and many other Chabad houses. What are some other myths about Shabbos? What are the myths about Shabbos? What was something that I was interested about? I don't know. Sunglasses are a bit of an issue. I don't want to get into too many laws of Shabbos. Again, only do these things if you're ready. Please don't. If you're not ready, don't do it yet. Okay. If you have any more questions about Shabbos, we'll come back. Somebody else sent me a question about Moshiach. Is Moshiach an exclusive? The Messiah, is that an exclusive idea to non-Jews? You guys have been in my class long enough to know that absolutely not. The Moshiach, Moshiach means anointed one, comes from King David, has to come from King David because the lineage, it said when King David became king, God said that the lineage will never depart from the tribe of Yehuda, from King David's progeny. So Shlomo Melech, King Solomon, and so forth. And Mashiach is a king. So king has to come from the tribe of Yehuda. We already went into, I think, what are the laws of Mashiach? Who does Mashiach have to be? Mashiach doesn't have to be, he's not a miracle worker, or he's not going to change the order of the world. He's going to teach Torah. He's going to lead the people and bring us back to Israel, build the Beis HaMikdash. Then we'll know for sure he's Mashiach, right? There's two types. Every generation has a Mashiach, says the Rambam. And in other words, the person who's fitting to be Mashiach. It's called the Cheskas Mashiach, the one who's the most likely candidate. And then there's Mashiach Vadai, that's the one when he actually brings us to, begins to build the Beis HaMikdash. That's the first sure Mashiach. And then there's a whole new because now we'll have a whole new one, because we will then have a whole new understanding of Torah, and he'll teach us Torah. That'll be his main job, is to teach us the deeper levels of Torah. We'll see the world differently, and we'll be able to understand the world differently, and the world will operate in a different way because of that. So obviously Mashiach is a Jewish concept.
I have a question, quick
Yeah.
question. So is Moshiach able to reveal itself like at a specific age, or would it be apparent whenever, like if Moshiach comes, like, I don't know, is there a distinct time period in which through their life they have to have been known as Moshiach, or I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mashiach can come at any age. It can be 100 years old. It'll be time for Mashiach. Yeah, it's not based on age. It could be 5 years old. It could be 5 years old. For sure not. For sure. I think we'll know it when we see it. Like, I mean that, I'm not trying to make a joke. It'll just be clear that this is clearly the person. Now, again, there's the Mashiach of the generation, who is the clear leader of the generation. But that doesn't mean he's the Mashiach Vadai, the Mashiach for all, to end all, so there'll be no other Mashiachs of generations. That's called the Mashiach Vadai. But every generation has a Mashiach. And I have to look for him. There's that. Any other questions? Anybody else have a question on that? Mashiach is always a good topic. Mashiach is what we want. We're trying to demand from God to bring Mashiach. We don't want any more of this, hide and seek game that God has been playing. We want Mashiach to come and reveal himself. We're ready. The leaders of the generations have already told us that we're ready. We've been ready for a very long time. It needs to happen.
Amen.
Okay, what else? We have over here the one other question. Oh, chosen people. What does that mean? So what does it mean that the Jewish people are the chosen people? Usually sounds pretty, it's inappropriate, so to speak. They, what do they say? There's a joke about that. Yeah, the joke is like, you ask an Italian, are Italians the best? They'll say, yeah, Italians are the best. You ask a Russian, are the Russians the best? Russians are the best for sure. Catholics the best. You ask a Jew, are the Jews the best? No way. But what does it mean chosen? If you look in the Torah, yeah, it says, it doesn't paint us in a very good light. Yeah, look at all the problems we cause God. We are constantly bickering, constantly fighting, constantly asking God, are you here? If you remember from the Parsha class today. God's constantly getting angry with us, killing us, reviving us, loving us, not loving us. It's a relationship. It's like a teenager. It's a teenager and a parent. It's just this constant bickering and back and forth and complicated. Even look at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Look at their families. Very highly dysfunctional families. Brothers trying to kill brothers. Fathers kicking out stepsons, sons and daughters and second wives. It is like complete dysfunction. And I'll just tell you something else. The Torah, if you notice, the Torah only ever talks about problems. The Torah is never like, and then there was the Torah doesn't talk about like the good years, right? It only talks about when there's like an issue coming up. Abraham has to go do this. Has to go bail out his nephew Lot, and this one Esau is trying to kill him, trying to kill Jacob, and Joseph gets thrown into a prison. It doesn't talk about like the last 17 years of Jacob's life, and it just says his life was good. He says last 17 years Jacob's life in Egypt were good years. It doesn't like get into like how it was good. Maybe he went to a bunch of weddings, a few bar mitzvahs, bas mitzvahs. It doesn't get into that. It only talks about the harsh times. So what? Chosen for what? Chosen to just get beat up? That's the question. The question is chosen for what? What does it mean chosen? You're chosen. Chosen to do what? Chosen to clean the toilets. Like what are you chosen for? So the Torah says, just like there are no two faces which are the same, even amongst twins, there are no two faces look the same. Same thing, there are no two souls which are the same. I just looked up on Wikipedia, because I saw an Orkin.org, like that company Orkin. There were 120,000 species of houseflies. Diversity is what I'm trying to get at. There is diversity in the world. Hashem created an immense amount of diversity even amongst, besides people. Just look around, everything is diverse. Why? Because God created it in a way that I have a strength that you don't have, and you have a strength that I don't have. Therefore, what does that do? That gives me an ability to give you something, and that gives you an ability to give me something or somebody else. What's giving? Why is giving so important? Because giving is what emulates God. I think we spoke about it in the Kabbalah class. Giving, the ability to give, is the greatest, brings a person the greatest joy. Yeah, I've said before, what gives you more joy? When you go to hear a comedian and he makes you laugh, or when you make somebody else laugh? When you make somebody else laugh, for sure. That's why comedians do it. Ask Jerry Seinfeld talks about it all the time. It's like this control, this feeling, this power. Because that is an emulation of God. God is the ultimate giver, and we want to emulate God. And when we emulate God, when you're in an ability to give, you feel godly. So God therefore gave everybody an ability, every human an ability to give something. They have something of themselves that they're able to give. If you are not sure what that is, or if you feel like you're not giving the way you should, and a good barometer of that is, are you joyful? Which constantly takes work. Then you're probably putting yourself in a situation, a toxic relationship. You're in a toxic environment or a toxic relationship, or you have a toxic mindset that you need to clear up and do some soul searching and talk with somebody else about it. How to get through that? What are my issues? And figuring it out. What's that blockage? What's that thing that's keeping you stuck, so to speak? Stuck meaning I'm not able to give. I'm not able to express. Chesed, the first sphera is giving. You're not able to do that. So God therefore gave you. So everybody has this ability to give something. Now, everybody therefore has a specialty. The Jewish people, we were given a gift, chosen to carry out a specific mission. Not to say that our mission is better. There's no vocabulary. It doesn't say Jewish people are better than anybody else. It doesn't say that anywhere in the Torah, because that's not true. If that were true, then as the Rambam says, the question is like this: is a Kohen Gadol, the Kohen, the holiest person, is he the best Jew there is because he gets to see God all the time? Look how many mitzvahs he has. He has more mitzvahs than anybody else. Is he better? Okay, to be honest with you, I don't know if I would want to be Kohen Gadol. I don't know if you know what it's like to be a Kohen Gadol. Number one, you're never allowed to leave the base of Mikdash, which means you're never allowed to go to a burial of your parents, and you're never allowed to go to a wedding of your children or your grandchildren, unless it's, which you can't, unless it's in the base of Mikdash, which you can't do. You're not allowed to do that in the base of Mikdash, in the Holy Temple. So he's never allowed to go to any of the simchas. He has to wear the big day kahuna, the outfits of the Kohen Gadol, all the time. It's very heavy. He's got a lot of mitzvahs to do all the time. He doesn't, he only deals with problems, right? He can sit on a bezdin. He just deals with issues. Yeah, he's a boss. Yeah? When you're the boss of your own company, it's very hard to be a boss. You got to work through problems, constantly work through problems. It's not, okay, great. He has this other side benefit where he gets to see God once a year, and obviously there's a big schus and a big merit to be the Kohen Gadol. But let's just, but again, the question is it better to be the Kohen? Is he a more special person than everybody else? Is he chosen to be better than anybody else? Is he better than Moshiach? Moshiach can't be a Kohen. So you're saying Aaron the high priest is better than Moses? Is that true? Because Aaron has more mitzvahs and he's the Kohen? Are you saying Moses is better than Aaron? Moses was a Levite, right? He wasn't a Kohen. Okay, he had a special, he was able to see God. But let's say Yeshua and Elazar, the next people. Is Elazar better than Yeshua? I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say Yeshua is better than Elazar. I wouldn't say they're better than Mashiach. I wouldn't say Mashiach is better than that. So we all have a special mission. We're chosen to do something specific. The Rambam says that how can you be a Kohen or a Levite? How is it possible that I want to be like a Kohen and a Levi in the sense that I want to be constantly, I want to have this closeness to God, so to speak. Yeah, they're closer to God, meaning they see God, there's more revelations of godliness to them than perhaps the average man, because they're much more involved in holiness. If they deal in holiness. The Rambam says any person, it says in the laws of the chapter, the last chapter in the Jubilee years, the laws of the Yovel and Jubilee years, it's the same thing, Shemitah and Yovel. Shemitah, the 7th year and the Jubilee years. It says any person who would like to be a Kohen, Gadol, or a Levite, in the sense of what they represent. In other words, they're removed from the world. Any person, not just Jew, any person who removes himself from the worldly matters. He doesn't involve himself. He doesn't get caught up in worldly events or worldly matters, but he sets himself aside to serve God, and God is his focus, and growth, spiritual growth, and reaching to his core. That is his mission in life, and becoming closer with other people. Much like the Kohen, that was his job. The Kohen was a person of kindness and would become close with somebody and lift somebody up. Anybody who strives to be that type of person is on the same status as a Kohen and a Levite. Any person, says the Rambam, not Jew, any person. So the Rambam clearly says that there's no, just like there is not within the Jewish people, there's not one who's better than the other. Yet you're just set aside for certain missions. You have special roles that only you can accomplish, something that only you can do, just like there's something only I can do. Same thing that's within the Jewish people. That's with regards to mitzvahs, but that's with regards to anybody, any person in the world. That's why we don't try to bring non-Jews into Judaism. That's not our mission, because that could be denying. It probably is denying who you're meant to be. That's the whole point. You don't have to become Jewish. In fact, if you try to become a baker, who's meant to be a baker, but he ends up polishing diamonds, he's denying who he's supposed to be, who his essence is. And if you have a specialty in making diamonds or whatever it is with diamonds, and you go ahead and you're a doctor, that's a serious problem according to Torah. You're not allowed to do that. If that's your way of getting closer to God and getting other people closer to God, however that plays itself out, then you're doing the wrong thing. So not necessarily becoming Jewish. In fact, it's not. That's why Jews aren't out proselytizing, because we know as our mission that's not your goal. Your goal, you don't have to be Jewish. In fact, you probably shouldn't be Jewish. So there's one more thing I wanted to say. Again, so what does it mean, chosen? Asher bachar rabbanim mikol amim. He chose us to give the Torah. That's what it is. He gave the Torah. And it chose us to have these certain mitzvahs, these certain commandments. Now Jews have their own commandments also. Any questions? All right. That's what I thought. No, I'm just kidding.
I just had a question about the converts.
Yeah.
You know how they say that some of them some people actually have Jewish souls, I believe.
Exactly what a convert is. Yeah.
Yeah. How do the then like recognize that, or how does that work?
How do they recognize it? I mean, it's just basically at some point your soul is not able. It's like probably all of us. We have time to time. I feel like my soul is not expressing itself. A person who becomes like more observant or converts, if the person says like, oh, I had like an epiphany, or I had a moment in my life that really, and that's it, because I had that moment in my life, this is a new path for me. That's a problem. That's a red flag. A person who becomes more observant, or a person who converts, I see it as no other way. This is an expression of who I am. It's just very natural. Yeah, it says about Abraham, he had what's called Mesirat Nefesh, self-sacrifice. If you ask Abraham, he went up multiple times. Yeah, he jumped in the fire. He was thrown into a fire. He knew he was going to get killed. There was 10 tests. If you ask him, why did you go on self-sacrifice for this? He'll tell you, I didn't go on self-sacrifice. I had to do this. This was just, I didn't think about self-sacrifice. This is just what this is just what I had to do. This was the natural thing to do. Yeah, a guy in the military, when he goes and he saves a bunch of people in the line of fire and such, he's not going to be like, okay, now I'm going to go and self-sacrifice, and I'm going to do this for the glory. Or no, he's just like, I didn't even think about I didn't even think about this. This is okay. This is the next step, and I go in. Now, looking back, you see that it was like, wow, there was like some serious self-sacrifice. You could like risk your life for this. You didn't really, but that is how you know. If you are feeling this is, of course, this is what I have to do. I just have to do this. There's no other way. When you reach that point, everything will fall into place.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
That's funny. Any other questions? Okay, unrelated to this, I'm going to start doing a Tanya class, I think. That's what I want to do. I want to start teaching Tanya. I think I'll be teaching that at night. Somebody just gave a thumbs up. I want to start teaching Tanya. It's very important that we learn that. And
Yes, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, totally. Okay. And it's funny, you weren't the one that clapped your hands. Somebody else clapped. So everybody wants to do that. I want to do that. Obviously, Tanya is everything. It's what's best. So I want to do that as part of one of the night classes. Get rid of the question and answers. The Mythbusters can be questions and answers. Most of you just send me questions during the week anyway. I don't think we need to do questions and answers. But I want to start doing Tanya. So that is the plan for tomorrow night. As of now, unless Moshiach comes, then Moshiach will teach Tanya. Or if my wife has a baby, then we might have to take a break for a day or two. Anyway, I want to wish you a good night. We'll start preparing for that. Please send me questions if you have any questions. And it's always a pleasure to see your names. I'm sure there are faces behind there too. Okay, good night, everybody. Sei gesund.